the How to Spark Success podcast. I'm your host, Liz Hamlet, and I'm a success coach, business mentor, and I'm also founder of Spark Succeeds. So this is a podcast where I have conversations with smart and savvy business owners, thought leaders, and people doing really cool stuff around the globe. So I've got a great guest for you today. My guest is a lovely Kiwi, but she is based in London with me as well. She is a TV presenter, an MC and event host, multi-talented. She's also a voiceover artist and on-camera coach, and that's really how I got to know her. She's also founder of TSOL Media, and she can tell us a bit about that. And she was the one that broke the news of Michael Jackson's death on TVNZ to New Zealand. And she's also, amongst many people, interviewed iconic Kiwis such as Sir Edmund Hillary. So I'm delighted to welcome Tiffany Hardy. How are you, Tiff?
Hi, Liz. Thanks very much for that. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's fantastic to have you. And I'm very mindful of my technique on camera today, particularly because you're here.
Don't worry, you're doing very good.
And we've spoken, I know, like about all the sort of breathing tips and tongue twisters. So I've been practicing your good work. So hopefully it'll come across today.
Very good. Good girl. So, and we're matching in our spots today.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, you got the memo of the polka dot. So excellent on-screen coaching. So do you want to tell us a bit about, TSOL Media and your career journey? Because you've done a lot of different things. You've also sort of been producer as well. So do you want to talk about your career and, where it's brought you today?
Sure. Okay. So I have worked in media and film and TV production industries for over 17 years now. I started my first job in TV when I was 12. I was a little cable runner behind the camera operator at rugby games. I think I used to get paid $10 a game or something like that. Rain, hail or shine, we were there. And then I had my first presenting job at 16. So that was sort of where it all began for me. And then after a lot of, work experience and sort of volunteer stuff in the media industries, I went on and did a degree at the New Zealand Broadcasting School. So I said it was a degree in broadcasting communications, specialising in journalism. And then so after that, I went on and worked in news for about 5 years. So I worked in regional TV. I went back to my hometown of Invercargill in New Zealand and worked at Southland TV, and then moved up to Wellington in New Zealand, worked at Radio New Zealand. And so I was working at Southland TV as a reporter and newsreader, and Radio New Zealand as a reporter and producer. And then I moved up to Auckland, big smoke of New Zealand, and I started working at TVNZ, which is the biggest TV network in New Zealand. And I was part of the original presenter-producer team that launched a whole new channel, which was called TVNZ7. So that was pretty exciting stuff. It was sort of bare bones resources and stuff like that for us, but and long shifts and all sorts of things, starting 4:30 in the morning or working till 11:30 at night, depending what shift you were on, and things like that. So that was a really good experience for me and a pretty full-on job, I'm not going to lie. So we produced the story, so we would cut the pictures and write the stories and then line them up. And then for half the shift, you would read the news live on air as well. And then the other half, you would produce it live in the control room. So yeah, so that was good. And then I moved on from there. I went overseas. So I went traveling, and I went all around South Africa for the 2010 World Cup and followed the New Zealand football, or soccer as we call it back home, soccer team around South Africa, which was amazing. And then went on to Europe and the UK and did one of those amazing 13 countries, 24 days trips. And so saw a lot then, and went over to New York, and then lived in Canada for just over a year. So traveled a lot all over Canada and the States as well. So that was pretty cool. And then I came back to New Zealand after that, and I I thought, oh, I love doing all this traveling and I've got so much experience and knowledge now. Maybe I'll work in the travel industry. So my career squiggled to the travel industry from working in broadcast news and doing a few random jobs in Canada. And so I did it for a couple of years, and that was good. I got a few perks in travel, but mainly sort of just learning a lot more about travel in different parts of the world. And then I just really missed being on set and working with cameras and that sort of thing. So I didn't go back to news, but I went into the production industry, so film and TV production. And you know, I'd had all this experience in news and all these transferable skills, but basically people weren't super interested in that. And, you know, although it was sort of like a partner industry, but it was still quite different. So I worked my way up from the bottom and, you know, did lots of the sort of quite junior roles like runner or production assistant or unit, which is basically looking after the food and drinks and snacks for the crew, keeping them all fed and hydrated. I even did a art director's assistant job once, where basically we were filming a music video and just had to clean heaps of windows because it was this big glass area, this sort of really glass house that they were filming from outside, so we had to make sure the windows were spotless. And rearranging all these items in the house and then putting them back exactly how they were, and things like throwing leaves up into fans so they would sort of flutter down like it was a really autumn day, and funny things like that. So that was quite fun and a good sort of all-round look into the industry. And then I moved into production management and producing and also directing talent as a producer, which is what I've been doing for the last 6.5-ish years, both in New Zealand and here in London. So yeah, so that has sort of taken me around the world a bit as well, working in a lot of corporate type films or videos, but you know, a lot of variety in that. Some were dramas, some were animations, a lot of live action, a lot of interviews, you know, all sorts of things. So that's been really good. And then basically that's what I was doing right up till the lockdown. And sort of just before we locked down, I lost my job, which wasn't actually anything to do with COVID-19. I was being bullied basically by a member of my team, and the company decided, instead of trying to sort it out or to try and support me, that they'd just get rid of me. And they took the sort of easier, cheaper and quicker route and got rid of the victim instead of the bully. So that was fun. And it sort of makes you think a lot about these places that you work at and how they treat people and how people are just a number and things like that. And that's not somewhere where I want to be working. So I was sort of putting the feelers out there, applying for jobs, meeting new people and that sort of thing. And then basically I decided maybe I'll have a break from producing, and I wanted to focus on my emceeing work, which I've been doing a sort of side hustle thing. I've been doing it over 10 years, and I just emceed an event in January in London. I really loved it, so I thought, right, I'm going to focus on this. And then what do you know? The world basically shut down, and you know, events, film shoots, jobs, whatever, everything was being shut down left, right, and centre. And so I thought, maybe emceeing isn't quite the right market right now. So I sort of shelved that just for a little bit, and I was just like everybody else, kind of trying to figure out how to cope with this crazy world that we were living in, with these lockdowns and all these restrictions. And, you know, I was applying for jobs, but there wasn't really any jobs around, or they'd have, you know, notices on them like, yeah, you can apply, but we'll get back to you in a few months once things have settled down. So you're like, oh, okay, cool. So I just, you know, I spent a lot of time on my phone watching COVID memes and like looking at videos and all this sort of jokes that were floating around, watching press conferences here in the UK and keeping up with what was happening back home in New Zealand, and also even in Australia. I've got a sister there and lots of friends there, and keeping tabs on the States, got friends there as well. And so that sort of does take up a lot of time. And then, you know, you probably stay up a bit late watching Netflix and things like that. So I was just kind of, I guess, floundering around a bit. And then I had been involved in a network the whole time I've been in London, basically. It's called the New Zealand Business Women's Network. And I just found that during this whole crazy COVID time, they have been so great, and putting on all these events, putting out all these resources, just checking in on people and just sort of giving you things to do and try and help you. And it was just so amazing. And that's actually how I met you, Liz. So that's been a bonus. And one of the things that I took from that is they have a book club every couple of months, and Liz, you'll know exactly what book I'm going to be talking about. But they have this book club, and it wasn't just a COVID thing. They always had this book club, and to be honest, I've never paid much attention to it. It wasn't really something on my radar, or the books that I sort of read. You know, I'm sort of into your more thrillers, your Dan Browns. I'm currently rereading the 6 Girl in the Dragon Tattoo books, you know, James Patterson, that sort of thing, or biographies on like 90s grunge rock stars like Anthony Kiedis of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, or, you know, Dave Grohl of Foo Fighters, and that's sort of more what I tended to read. And then I saw the book that they were reading, and I just thought, oh, quite like the name of that. That sort of speaks to me. That I have a bit of a look into it, and I've got it right here. This is it here. It's called The Squiggly Career, and I just sort of thought, oh, I've had quite a squiggly career. I like the sound of this, and so I looked into it and I brought it, and then I read it, and so that was taking quite a bit of my time during the whole lockdown, and it just really spoke to me. It sounds a bit airy-fairy, hippy-dippy, but it was really good, and it made me also feel like it was okay that I had squiggled in and out of different industries and careers and jobs, and because I sort of maybe felt a little bit ashamed about that sometimes, or a bit embarrassed, but now I know that like that's quite normal, and that's definitely the way things go these days, that people don't really stay in the same job for 40 years and then retire. Like that is definitely things of past. And I know that all these jobs that I've squiggled in and out in different industries have all sort of come together to sort of make me who I am today, I guess, and where I'm at today. But yeah, so I read that book, and it really opened things up for me. It talks about things like your super strengths, your values, networking, and future possibilities. And the thing that really got me was super strengths. And you know, you kind of know what you're maybe good at or best at, but you don't really take the time to sit down and think about it and write it down. Like the book is, it's not just something that you just flick through and read. You really do like do activities and write things down, and makes you think about things. And so it gets you to figure out what your super strengths are, and then it actually gets you to sort of do a bit of maths and tally up these different things to figure out what it is. But then it says, forget about which ones are your number one and are your top. Which ones make you happy? And I was like, whoa. I was just like, oh, okay. So I figured out which ones made me happy, and I was just like, that is just totally what I'm going to do. Like, you know, a lot of people, I guess, do jobs or parts of their jobs that maybe they're really good at, or everyone thinks that they're guru at, but they don't necessarily like them and they don't make them happy. They just kind of do them. And I just thought, I don't want to do that anymore. You know, I've sort of had enough of budgets and finance reports and shoot schedules and call sheets and things like that as a producer. So I'm going to focus on things that I really enjoy and that I love and that make me happy. So that's where TSOL Media came about, my little company. So I'd had that name for a while. I actually thought of that back in Auckland years and years ago, and I had been using it as a freelancer, so sort of as a company like that, but not in the sense that it's in now. So the word TSOL stands for Variety is the Spice of Life, which has always been a sort of mantra to me, I guess. I sort of think of it like, I don't know if anybody used to watch Ally McBeal back in the 90s or whenever it was, and all the characters would have their own theme song, and not so much in an editing point of view, but in the actual show in their heads, you know, when they're walking around or they're trying to amp themselves up, they would have this theme song. And so that's sort of what variety is the spice of life is for me. That, you know, I have a variety of interests. You know, I like all sorts of different kinds of music. I like different kinds of film. I have lots of different friends. I've sort of done lots of different jobs. I've been to lots of different places. And I do like to mix things up a lot, so it really did resonate with me. And the media part was just basically when I thought of it, the VITSOL was already taken. But I'm quite glad that I'd added the media anyway, because it sort of explains a little bit about what we're about, because people get a bit confused by the whole VITSOL thing. They're like, how do you say it? How do you spell it? You know, like, what is that? And then when you sort of say, oh, it stands for variety is the spice of life, they're like, oh, that's really cool. And they like it. And then that makes it much easier to spell and say and things like that. Yeah. So VITSOL Media is all about, we do presenting, emceeing's back, voiceover work, and also on-camera coaching. And we're all about helping you deliver your best. So it might be delivering your best film or video with, you know, an energetic and enthusiastic presenter, or your best audio with an engaging and friendly sounding voiceover, or your best event with a charismatic and witty MC. You know, we've all been to those events where the MC is horrendous and you just want them to get off the stage. And that is not what you want people to remember from your event. And then the on-camera coaching is all about helping you be your best self. So not freaking out if, say, someone like me as a producer came to your home or your office with a camera crew and, you know, a proper camera on a tripod and lights and sound gear and stuff. To be more confident and to have sort of tips and tricks on that, because so that's what I started it as, basically, for people like that, because I would come as a producer and, you know, we needed to interview these people, or maybe they needed to film a piece to camera, a PTC, which is when you look straight down the barrel. And a lot of these people, you know, global CEOs, big executives for different big companies, and they're used to public speaking, they're used to speaking to large groups, they're, you know, they may be training, they're talking to people all the time, but as soon as the camera gets in front of them, they just freak out and they sort of lose their energy, they lose their personality, they don't know what to do, they don't know where to look, and they just get really nervous and they just hate it, basically. And it's not nice for them, and it's not great for someone like me who turns up to try and film them, and then normally it will take longer to try and get a good take and things like that. So the on-camera coaching is really about just giving people confidence and tips. And because of this whole Zoomageddon thing that we've all been thrown into, it helps with that as well. So I have been doing a lot of coaching in that term. So, you know, just because everyone's been thrown in front of the camera on their phone or the camera on their computer doesn't mean that they're A, good at it, or B, like doing it. So I've just got heaps of tips and tricks for people that can just make it look better and more polished and professional, and also, you know, just make them more confident and less nervous and things like that. So, and it helps for filming yourself on your phone for social media, all sorts of things. So that's where that comes about. So that is VITSOL Media, my little business.
Yeah, and I know you've been putting out a lot of those tips, either tongue twisters or, you know, what is it, love the red dot of like looking at the camera directly, and, you know,
love the dot. That's right.
Yeah, love that dot. And I think, you know, like you said, at the moment it's so important because often small businesses are having to use now in lockdown, use a lot more either video conferencing or videos to advertise their services, and people just haven't been used to doing this. People have this sort of often a mental block of getting in front of the camera and, you know, being natural and being able to sort of put across their message. And, you know, what you're doing with your tips and your sort of masterclasses and sort of one-on-one work is really important, because it's things that you're probably not aware of, and tips that you can use. Because I know, you know, we worked together. I came to one of your masterclasses and we did some sort of one-on-one work together. It's quite useful to have someone, you know, feedback on your videos if you've done any. But you know, I really like that you're saying it's not always for that sort of camera crew. It is about filming for social media, you know, maybe some quick, you know, Instagram stories or something about your day, because you know, what's really beneficial on Instagram or other social media is that sort of behind the scenes stuff that people really want to see about your business. You know, like I know you post a lot of, here's me in the voiceover booth, you know, this is the background, you know, it's not the end article, but this is actually my day to day. And you know, people are really interested in that. So what feedback are you generally getting when you're working with people, either on masterclasses or one-to-ones, on their thoughts on sort of getting in front of the camera?
I think that people generally aren't experiencing it, so they just don't know. And people might not always be as nervous as others, but you know, a lot of the things are common sense really, but as we know, common sense isn't always so common. Or it's not even that. I mean, I have worked in TV, as I said, since I was 12. So I have a pretty good grasp on many different aspects in front and behind the camera. And working as a producer the last 6.5+ years, I always have a lot of attention to detail. That is one of my strengths. And, you know, I would be the one, you know, making sure someone's hair's not out of place or sticking up, or their tie's straight, and lots of little things like that that may seem picky or, you know, a bit silly or whatever, but it just makes it so much better and so much more polished. And the big thing is that I reckon is to have as least distractions as possible. So, you know, that crooked tie might really grate someone, or all they think about is, oh, look at that crooked tie, God. And they're not even listening to what the person's saying. And it's so true that we do get distracted easily by things like that. So the less distractions, the better. And that is exactly the same for when you're on these sorts of Zoom calls, to try not to have, you know, lots of things behind you, or dangly earrings that are sort of swinging around and mesmerizing people, or, you know, maybe your hair's just sticking up a little bit, or all sorts of things. And the less distractions that you have, the better it is. And I think feedback that I get from people was basically, oh, I hadn't thought of that. Oh, that's really helpful. Oh, I'll give that a try. And, you know, it's not that, you know, I don't use the word stupid, but it's not like they're stupid or anything. It's just something that they haven't worked on, they haven't done before, they haven't thought about, because they're, you know, their specialty is something else, and they're maybe more thinking about what they're going to say in this meeting or call or pitch or whatever. But it's all sort of a whole package that, especially, you know, if you're working with your clients or wanting to get a promotion, or you're pitching to potential clients or investors, it's the whole thing, you know. It's just like making a good first impression. It's just like if you met them in the office, you'd want to be looking your best, you'd want the office to be tidy, you'd want other people in the office to be friendly to them, and it's just the same on video or on screen. And so it's just sort of thinking about these little things. And, you know, it doesn't matter that you might not have thought of that. That's where someone like me can come and help you. I have been working on this stuff for years and years and years, and I just see it like that, you know. And maybe if I was to try and do your job, I wouldn't be any good, or, you know, I wouldn't know all the stuff that you know, and it's just the same. But I think the best thing is that when people are open to it and willing to try things or change things, and you know, I think there probably are a lot of people out there that don't really care or hadn't thought about it. But definitely, if you are trying to, you know, get new clients or sign off deals, and a lot of that is happening over video and over screen now, then why not just look your best and look really polished?
Great. I know we've all been following some of your tips. I love particularly your anecdote about you know, when you were filming in corporate settings, and you know, you took the like powder, face powder around. It was always like the big men that were like, yeah, I'll have more face powder on. So just, I always remember that, and I always do remember to make sure you're sort of not shiny for the camera. So what would you say has been the biggest factor in your success?
I've been thinking about this since you asked me to come on and talk to you about success for a wee while. And I'm probably like a lot of your interviewees, that you sort of think, oh, success, do I have any success? What is my success, you know? And you sort of think, oh, it's just me, I'm just doing this. But obviously well, me personally, I've sort of come a long way. I've been in these different industries. I've worked my way up, and I also am a big believer in you've got to celebrate little successes. You know, if you're just always waiting for the big stuff, then it doesn't make life as much fun, or, you know, you don't really see all your achievements and stuff. So, but I think the biggest factor that's helped me getting where I am today is people and my people skills. And I really love people, and you know, I love, you know, building relationships and nurturing them and getting to know people. And that might be whether it's a client or a colleague or a friend of a friend or a supplier that you work with. You know, if you can work with great people and get on and have a bit of a laugh and have some fun, then it just makes life so much better. And I really love meeting new people and finding out about them. You know, where's your accent from? What's your background? You know, what are your interests? You know, what's your family? What are you into? What makes you tick? That sort of thing. And, you know, I genuinely care about people. You know, I'm sort of want to help them. My partner, we have a bit of a joke. They sometimes calls me helpful Tiff, and sometimes, you know, if you try to help someone it doesn't work out, that's sort of when helpful Tiff, the name will come out. But you know, if I say in an email, I hope you're well, or how are you, I genuinely want to know how you are, or hope that you are well. It's not just a throwaway line. And, you know, I've had managers before where they'll come in, you know, you've been working since 4:30 in the morning, and they'll come in at 9 or whatever, and they'll be like, oh, how are you? How was the weekend? And then they'll just walk away before you even get a chance to answer. And you're like, you know, why did you even bother asking? If you actually don't care, I'd rather you didn't ask and walk away. I'd rather you just said nothing, because it's just probably more annoying, you know, not caring about the answer. So people is definitely a big one for me. And I, you know, I nurture those relationships and build on them, and I try my best to keep in touch with people that I had a connection with and that I liked working with, or whatever it might have been, and just keep in touch, you know, whether it's through LinkedIn or Facebook or you know, email, or going to see them and I'm in that city that they live in, and things like that. And I don't just forget about them if I move jobs, or if I leave the company, or if I leave a city. You know, I sort of feel like lots of people will be like, oh, you know, well, I'm not there anymore. That connection and that tie with them is finished. But I definitely don't think that, because you never know, you know, what might happen down the track, or how you might be able to help them, or how they might be able to help you, or you just genuinely like their values, their company, you know, their personality, and that sort of thing.
It's such an important skill particularly for entrepreneurs, to sort of have that strong network. And you know, you never know when people will be useful, or you'll be able to help them. So I think, you know, keeping those relationships going is really key. So one of your success habits you've mentioned, I know it's true, is your attention to detail. But what would you say are your other success habits?
Well, my other success habits is definitely the people skills again. I remember once I was at a market with my cousin, and I was talking to this guy, and she was like, oh, who's that? You're like, is that one of your friends or something? And I was like, oh, no, it's just my client. It was just, I sold him his honeymoon when I worked in travel. And, you know, we were just chatting and catching up. And he, I think, had a butchery or something, and he was at the market, and he gave me some free bacon. Which, you know, I wasn't talking to him to get free bacon. I wasn't expecting that or anything. But it just, you know, I just like having those connections with people. I like having sort of, you know, you might have sort of in jokes in the relationship, or, you know, just things that you both like, or just generally nice, friendly people that you want to hang around with. So that's a big one for me. But also another one is, I think, grit. Is a big one for me, which is a bit of a buzzword at the moment, but basically perseverance and, you know, sticking to things and reaching goals is quite big for me. So, you know, it's not, I am a Gemini, so I do sort of start things and start something else, and might, you know, have a lot of things on the go, but I do try and get them finished. Or if I have something that I really want to do, then I work really hard to get there and to achieve that. And sort of looking back on my life for this interview, it did make me think about things. And say even getting into the New Zealand Broadcasting School, like that was a big goal for me. And it's quite, I don't know about these days, but it's quite hard to get into. They only take 20 people per stream per year. So the streams were journalism, radio and TV production. So only 20 per year. And I had looked into it at high school before I was even in my last year at high school. And then I applied from high school, and, I've been doing all this volunteer work experience, working on different TV shows and things like that. And that wasn't necessarily to get into broadcasting school. That was, I probably didn't even know about broadcasting school then. I just really liked it. But I didn't get in straight from high school. And at the time I was really gutted, of course, but a bit of a believer in fate, and it just wasn't meant to be for me then. And I don't think I would have coped with it straight from high school anyway. So I went to university for a year. I got into physical education PE school at Otago University, which is obviously something totally different. But so I went there and I did a year there, and I did some film and media papers and communications and English alongside my full PE school part one of the degree, and doing anatomy and like dead bodies and all this awful stuff, gymnastics and all sorts of things. But when I was supposed to be studying for my university exams, I was literally studying for my broadcasting school interview, and then went away and had that, and then come back and study. So I passed all my exams, but I got into broadcasting school the second time round, and so that was pretty cool. And it was a full-on, really practical degree. I always felt like they sort of crammed a year and half a year sort of thing. So that was a big thing for me. So I got there, and I got through. I passed my shorthand and all these things, and got my degree. So that was a big one. And then also say, I always wanted to work for the big TV networks in New Zealand, and I did that. I got my job at TVNZ as a producer presenter of TVNZ7 and launched that new channel. But that wasn't the first job that I ever applied for there. I'd applied for lots of jobs there and at other TV networks, and just got to keep pushing. And I if I was in the city, I'd go up and meet with people that might be able to get me a job, or were the ones hiring the people, and just keep sort of working away at it, and not just expect that it's just all going to happen. And another example of that, even in my personal life, is last year with the Cricket World Cup, which was here in the UK. And it's a bit of a long story, so I'll try and keep it short. But I really love cricket, and in particular the New Zealand Black Caps. And I'd been to some of the World Cup games when they were in New Zealand last World Cup, and we went to the semi-final, New Zealand versus South Africa, and it was just so amazing. And then I had been following the games over here, but didn't manage to get any tickets because they just had sold out a long time ago. And so I was watching the games at the pub or listening to them online and all sorts of things. And then New Zealand was just doing so well, and then we beat India, and I think it was the semi-final, which nobody thought was going to happen. New Zealand was not backed as the winner for that game. And then we were into the final, and it was just like, oh my God, have to go to this. It was at Lord's, and I'd always wanted to go there, or at least in recent years, wanted to go to a game at Lord's, and especially a Black Caps game. And then it was going to be the World Cup final with the Black Caps New Zealand team versus the home side of England. And how you can't get any bigger than that, really. And so I was trying everything to get tickets. We were trying to buy them online, but the official website didn't have any. And then there was lots of sort of dodgy, overpriced ones, and trying to steer clear of them because you don't even know if you actually had a ticket. And then I was, I was reaching out to people back home that sort of worked in sport, or my old colleagues in TV and media, if they could help at all. Lots of people were sort of saying, maybe you can get tickets from India fans because they'd all brought them thinking they were going to be in the final. So I was joining like cricket groups and everything. And And I even asked like a friend of mine who's good friends with an ex-Black Cat if there was any way that he could try and get us some tickets. And like I had actually met him, it wasn't a complete stranger, but you know, I was trying really hard. I really wanted to be at this game. You know, I was already in London. I didn't need to travel for it. I just needed to get in the gate. And so the day before the final, my partner and I went down to Lord's to sort of suss it out like I hadn't been there before and just see what the lay of the land was, see if there was perhaps any tickets floating around. And my poor mum, who had just come over from New Zealand for a holiday, who had probably arrived a couple of days before maybe, who's not a cricket fan, she was hanging out with us at Lord's just basically for a day while we were trying to see if we could get any tickets. We did manage to meet Sachin Tendulkar, the cricket royalty, so that was a bonus. But then after a while we were kind of like, okay, let's go get some dinner, and we went to a pub nearby and actually met a reporter and camera operator from TVNZ back in New Zealand, so I was talking to them for a bit. And even the reporter could go to the game, but the camera operator couldn't even get in. Like, that's how tight it was. These tickets were like hen's teeth. And so we had our dinner, and then all of a sudden tickets came on for sale on the ICC website while we were still at the pub. So we were trying and refreshing, and we were trying for hours, and they seemed to sort of drop someone every half hour, and you just couldn't get any. And then we thought, we better start getting home. And so we're trying on the way home, and we're trying back at our place, and then we sort of, I better go to bed. And it was after, I feel like it was 12:30 or 1 in the morning or something. And then we had to get up at 4:30 or something the next day. So we got up early and then went back to Lord's. I think we got there just after 6, and we were maybe about 4th in the queue. And so we're waiting for the ticket thing to open to, you know, surely the first 20 of us or something could get tickets. And then it started to rain. Of course, hadn't brought like an umbrella or jacket or anything, so you're just standing there in the rain. And then they opened up a couple of hours later, I think 8 or 8:30, and then just basically said, no, got no tickets. We're not selling tickets. This is just for people who are picking up tickets. Basically, can you please move on? And we were like, what? Not even 10 tickets? Like, there's got to be some tickets. This is insane. What about people that can't come, or people that have handed them back? No. Or what about people that don't turn up? They're like, well, if we have to keep their seats in case they turn up in the last minute of the game. And you're like, oh. So I couldn't really believe that, and I wasn't ready to give up yet. So we sort of hung around and just waited to see what happened. And then, you know, there's a big line starting up with people picking up their actual tickets. And I had like my little cardboard sign that said, any spare tickets, just someone had, 4 tickets and only 3 people were going, or anything like that, but no luck. And then the game started and we were still on the outside of the Lord's Stadium, and it was just like, oh no. And then we'd made some friends in the line, and so we this other Kiwi guy who I think had been back further in the line came over, and we were all watching the game on his cell phone outside Lord's on this tiny little screen. And it was from we were watching his Sky TV from back in New Zealand, in London, and then you know, the crowd would cheer in Lord's. We're like literally just on the other side of the fence, but we didn't know what had happened yet. Was it something good for New Zealand? Was it something good for England? And then we'd watch and we'd find out, like, oh. And then after a while, we're like, oh, I don't really want to stay here and watch on this tiny phone all day. So we went back to the same pub we'd been to the night before and had some lunch and dried off and watched the game there. And then when we were doing that, Lynn, one of the women that we'd met in the line, had given her number to this guy that was working at the stadium that we'd sort of been dealing with, and they had said, sorry guys, go, and all this sort of stuff. And he called her, and he had tickets for us. And we went back, and we sort of secret squirrel got them, and it was just so amazing.
This shows what you can achieve through persistence and like not, maybe things not working out the first time. So
exactly. And I mean, walking into that stadium, I know that game didn't turn out how any Kiwis wanted it to turn out, but it was a pretty historic game. And just even walking into that stadium, you know, they were just about to finish the first over, and it was like all your Christmases at once for me anyway. It was, you know, such an achievement because I've been working so hard to get those tickets. And
well, that is
you know,
good.
people who knows me know that I love Christmas, so it was a big deal. And you know, we're flying the flag. There was such a good atmosphere. We were both on TV and all sorts of stuff. But obviously, it didn't quite work out. But pretty historic having the.
Well, you got there. That was the main thing. And I'm sure, you know, your connections, and I'm sure you've sort of rubbed shoulders with a lot of amazing people during your varied career. But what would you say has been the best piece of advice that you've received about being successful?
Well, a couple of things, but I think definitely be yourself is a good one, which I've sort of started doing, I guess, more over the years. And, you know, that people get the real me and all my quirks and, you know, sort of jokes and personality and interests and things like that. And also to keep learning and growing. I've definitely learned so much, even just in these past 5 months, starting up a company and, you know, listening to podcasts and reading books and videos and learning about things like growth mindset and emotional intelligence and grit and better diversity and unconscious bias and all sorts of things. But my big one is to just do it. And it's not an ad for Nike, but just do it, just give things a go and give things a try. And basically that comes from, I do actually have a story behind that. My mum basically said that once. We were about to leave to go on the trip around South Africa for the World Cup and go live in Canada for over a year. And we were down in the South Island of New Zealand, and we were going to go to Stewart Island, which is one of the 3 main islands in New Zealand. And I'd been there a few times before, but my partner Mark hadn't been there yet. So we wanted to go there before we left. And my cousin was going to come with us. You know, you have to catch a ferry in quite rocky, rough seas or catch a flight there is how you get there. It's not like super close to the mainland. And so then we get up the next day and the weather is not great. And my cousin pulls out, and then, you know, my partner's family was saying, oh, I don't think you should go. And we were trying to decide, you know, this was sort of our one chance. We might not get to come back here for a long time. Who knows what would happen? And then my mum just said, just go, just give it a go, just do it. And so we did. And the weather there was stunning, and it was sunny and it was beautiful. And we had a great time, and we went to another little island called Old Island, and it was like, it's a bird sanctuary, and we just had the best time. And everyone back on the mainland was, you know, stormy, sort of windy, rainy weather. And so I always think about that story and just think about just giving things a go and just giving them a try and you know, putting yourself out there.
And what's the worst that can happen if you try something and it doesn't quite go the right way? Then at least you've tried it, and you know that's ticked off your list. So I think that's great advice. Well, Tiff, it's been fantastic to hear about your squiggly career. You know, I think that's what makes us most rounded when we've got careers like this, as you bring lots of different things to where you are today. So thanks so much for joining us and being a guest on the podcast.
No worries. Thank you very much for having me, Liz. It's been good.
And I'll make sure I include all your links so people can practice their tongue twisters and all their on-camera tips from your various social media. So where's the best place for people to come if they want to find out more?
You can probably come to vitsolmedia.com, so VITSOL media.com, and then we've also got all the links to social media on there, so your Facebook, LinkedIn and Instagram.
That's amazing. And yeah, I know on Instagram and on LinkedIn you're regularly doing tips, so it's a good one to follow for and the company page for some sort of information on what's easy to follow. So thanks so much, Tim. It's been great to have you.
Thanks very much, Liz. It's been great to be here.
And for the listeners today, join me for the next episode where I'll be joined by Jane Quinn from the Speakers Toolkit. She's a public speaking consultant and she's previously performed in front of thousands all over the world and also on the West End stage. She's been in Cats and Wonderful Town and The Go-Between. So she's using all her expertise on the stage to help people in public speaking. So that would be fantastic if you join me. And if you've been inspired by hearing Tiff's story today and you want to spark your own success, then you can book in a call with me at sparksucceed.co.uk, and that's for success coaching and business mentoring. So thanks once again, Tiff. It's been great having you. And I'm going to go and practice my tongue twisters again now. Have a great day. Bye.
Thank you.